That Christmas Eve, I understood that a single dinner could destroy what was left of my dignity. You are only good for scrubbing toilets, you useless old woman. Michael's words echoed in the dining room like a slamming door. Everyone laughed. My brother-in-law let out a loud cackle. Michael's mother clapped as if she had heard the best joke of the year. Sarah, my daughter, my only daughter, lowered her head and kept cutting the turkey as if nothing had happened. I stood there with the dirty plate in my hand, feeling the floor opening up beneath my feet. My name is Emily Carter. I am 58 years old. I was born in a small town in the Midwest where women learned that a mother's love is infinite, unconditional, and eternal, and I fulfilled that. I fulfilled it until I forgot about myself. This is the story of how a mother can love so much that she forgets to love herself, until life gives her back her voice in a way no one expected. That Christmas night, I kept a secret that would change everything. But to understand what happened after that dinner, I need to take you back 3 years, when everything started to break without me wanting to see it. 3 years earlier, Sarah brought Michael home for the first time. I was making a pot roast in the kitchen when I heard the door. My daughter walked in, radiant, with that sparkle in her eyes that only falling in love can give. "Mom, this is Michael." He was tall, in an impeccable suit, with a smile that looked rehearsed in front of a mirror. He extended his hand with exaggerated firmness. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Carter. Sarah has told me a lot about you." Something in his look made me uncomfortable from the start. It was a look that measured, that calculated, that appraised, as if he were evaluating a property before making an offer. But Sarah was so happy that I silenced that inner voice. Mothers always stay silent when our daughters smile like that. Michael worked at an investment firm. He spoke with big words about yields and portfolios, about trips to Miami and business dinners. Sarah looked at him as if she had found a prince. I only saw a man who never asked anything about me, who never wanted to know who I was beyond being Sarah Mother. For months, he was the perfect boyfriend. Flowers for Sarah, expensive chocolates, invitations to restaurants where I had never been. But never, not once. Did he ask how I was doing? Nor how I had raised Sarah alone after her father abandoned us when she was 5. Nor how I had worked cleaning houses, ironing other people's clothes, and selling baked goods in the mornings so she could go to a good school. None of that mattered to Michael. The wedding was big, expensive, perfect. I paid for half with my life savings. Michael said it was our contribution as a family. Sarah cried with happiness. I cried too, but for different reasons. I felt like I was handing my daughter over to a man who only saw value in what glittered. After the wedding, Sarah moved into Michael's house, a modern house with a garden and a 2-car garage. I stayed in my humble little house, the same one where I had raised her, with its peeling paint and the roof that leaked when it rained hard. At first, Sarah visited me every week. She told me about her new life, about dinners with Michael partners, about plans to remodel the kitchen. I listened, smiled, made her favorite lasagna. But something was changing in her. She talked less about her dreams and more about his dreams. One day, 6 months after the wedding, Sarah called me crying. "Mom, Michael says your house is too far away. He says it would be better if you moved in with us. That way you could help me with the house, and you would not be alone." My heart skipped a beat. I thought it was an invitation of love, of family. I sold some furniture, packed my things in 3 old boxes, and moved. The first week was beautiful. Sarah and I cooked together, watched movies at night, laughed like before. Michael came home late from work and barely greeted us. But in the second week, everything changed. One morning, Michael came into the kitchen while I was making breakfast. He poured himself coffee without saying good morning and then stared at me. "Emily, since you live here, it would be good if you helped more with the house chores. Sarah works and gets tired. You have time." It was not a suggestion. It was an order disguised as logic. I nodded. Of course I would help. It was my daughter. It was my family. But helping turned into doing everything. Doing the laundry, ironing Michael's shirts, cleaning the bathrooms, making breakfast, lunch, and dinner, watering the garden, washing the cars, receiving Michael friends when they had gatherings at the house, serving them drinks, cleaning up after they left. Sarah said nothing. She just looked at me with a mixture of guilt and relief, and I stayed silent because mothers always stay silent. There was an old photograph on my nightstand, an Emily of 30 years old with her hair loose in the wind and a huge smile standing in front of the Santa Monica Pier. She was wearing a white dress and sandals. She was free. She was happy. She owned her life. That woman no longer existed, or so I thought. Every night before sleeping, I looked at that photograph and wondered where that Emily had gone, when I had stopped mattering, when I had accepted that my only value was in serving. But something was about to change, something I did not know yet, but that destiny was already weaving in silence. Sometimes we trust too much in those we should not. Have you also been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read it. The first months in that house, I tried to convince myself that everything was fine. I got up at 6 in the morning before the sun came up. I made fresh coffee with cinnamon, the kind Sarah had loved since she was a little girl. I set the table with care, folded the napkins like my mother had taught me, ironed Michael's shirt while listening to the news on the radio, cleaned the master bathroom, the guest bathroom, the kitchen, watered the plants in the garden, prepared lunch and left it ready on the stove. All that before 10 in the morning. Sarah would run out to work, always late, always stressed. She would give me a quick kiss on the cheek and say, "Thank you, Mom. I do not know what I would do without you." Michael would drink his coffee without looking at me, check his phone and leave without saying goodbye. I stayed alone in that big, silent house. At first I thought it was temporary, that as soon as Sarah got organized, I could go back to my little house, to my quiet life. But weeks passed, then months, and there was always more to do. "Mom, could you wash the curtains? It is just that with the dust. Emily, the windows are dirty. It looks bad when guests come. Mom, can you stay on Saturday? We are having a dinner with Michael bosses." I always said yes because that is how I had been taught. A mother does not say no. A mother sacrifices. A mother gives everything without expecting anything in return. But something inside me was starting to fade. I remember a Sunday afternoon 3 months after moving in. I was in the kitchen preparing stuffed peppers for a family lunch Michael had organized. My hands were stained red from the ingredients. My feet hurt from standing so long. I had been cooking since 7 in the morning. Sarah came into the kitchen looking beautiful in her new dress, with makeup and perfume. "Smells delicious, Mom. You are the best." She hugged me quickly and ran out to attend to the guests. I stood there looking at my wrinkled, stained, tired hands. Hands that had worked a whole lifetime. Hands that no longer knew how to rest. From the living room, I heard laughter conversations, the clinking of glasses. Michael was telling a business anecdote. Everyone laughed. Sarah laughed too, with that new laugh she had learned since she got married. A polite, controlled, perfect laugh. I served the food. I placed every plate with care. No one said thank you. No one asked if I was going to sit down to eat with them. I ate alone in the kitchen, standing up with my plate on the counter, listening to the voices on the other side of the wall. That night, when everyone left and the house was silent again, I washed mountains of dishes. I put away the leftovers, swept the dining room, picked up the dirty napkins, cleaned the wine stains on the tablecloth. It was 2 in the morning when I finally went up to my room. I sat on the bed and looked at the photograph of Santa Monica, that young, free, smiling Emily. I tried to remember how it felt to be her. I tried to remember the last time someone had asked me how I was, the last time I had done something just for me. I could not remember. That night, I cried in silence with the pillow covering my mouth so no one would hear me. I cried for that woman in the photograph. I cried for the Emily that had ceased to exist. But I still did not understand that things were going to get much worse before getting better. Time passed and I became invisible. Michael stopped greeting me completely. He walked in and out of the house as if I were just another piece of furniture. When he needed something, he ordered it without looking at me. The bathroom is dirty. We are out of beers in the fridge. This shirt has a wrinkle. Never please. Never thank you. Never Emily. Just orders. Just demands. And Sarah, my little girl whom I had raised with so much love, whom I had carried in my arms when she cried, whom I had watched over during her feverish nights, whom I had defended when the world was cruel to her. Sarah kept silent. At first she tried to mediate. Michael, do not talk to my mom like that. But he would look at her with that cold stare he had, and Sarah would lower her voice. It is just that my mom understands. Right, Mom? And I nodded, because I did not want to cause problems, because I did not want my daughter to have conflicts in her marriage, because I thought that if I sacrificed a little more, if I endured a little more, everything would be fine again. How wrong I was. One afternoon, 6 months after living with them, I decided to do something for myself, something small, insignificant, but mine. I had seen an advertisement for an adult painting class at the community center. Classes were on Tuesday afternoons from 4 to 6. They cost $50 a month. I had some money saved, the little I had left from selling my furniture. I told Sarah during breakfast, "Daughter, I saw there are some painting classes." I thought I could go on Tuesdays. I have wanted to learn for years. Sarah smiled. "That is nice, Mom." "Of course. It will be good for you." I felt happy for the first time in months, excited as if a part of that Emily from the photograph was waking up. But that afternoon when I was about to leave, Michael came home early. "Where are you going to a painting class?" He looked at me as if I had said something absurd. Painting. At your age, he laughed, a dry, cruel laugh. "Emily, Sarah told me she needs you to stay today. Important clients are coming for dinner. Someone has to prepare everything." I looked at Sarah. She was in the living room with her phone in her hand without looking up. "Sarah, it is important, Mom. They are Michael clients. Please." I took off the sweater I had put on. I put away my purse. I went back to the kitchen. I never mentioned the painting classes again. That night, while I prepared beef medallions and Caesar salad, while I set the table with the good plates and crystal glasses, while I served the wine and smiled at strangers who did not even see me, something inside me broke. But I still did not know that this break was necessary, that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to find the strength to get up. The following months were a routine of silence and service. I got up early, worked all day, went to bed late, and in the middle of all that, I disappeared a little more each day. I stopped dressing up. What for? No one looked at me. I stopped talking at meals. What for? No one listened to me. I stopped having opinions, desires, dreams. I became what they needed me to be, an unpaid employee, a convenient shadow, a woman without a voice. But life has strange ways of reminding us who we are. One Tuesday afternoon, while cleaning Sarah's room, I found an old box under her bed. It was a shoebox where she kept childhood memories. Photos, drawings, letters. I sat on the floor and opened the box carefully. There was a photograph of Sarah at 7 years old in her school uniform hugging me. I was thin-tired, but I was smiling. Sarah held a drawing in her hand, one she had made for me at school. I took it out of the box. It was a crayon drawing of 2 people holding hands, one big and one small. Above it said with uneven letters, "My mom is the best in the world. I love her, Sarah." I stared at that drawing for a long time. What had happened to that girl who loved me like that? What had happened to that mother who was worth loving? I put the drawing in my apron pocket and kept cleaning. But something had changed. A small seed of something I could not yet name had been planted. While I tell all this, I think about where you might be listening to me. Write the name of your city in the comments. fractures never happen all at once. They arrive as invisible cracks that open little by little until one day you look and everything is broken. The first real fracture, the one I could not ignore, arrived on a Saturday morning. I was in the garden pruning the roses that took so much work to keep alive. The sun was strong and my hands already had calluses from working so much. I was wearing an old hat and an apron stained with dirt. Michael came out of the house with two of his friends, all dressed in expensive sportswear, ready to go to the golf club. They stopped near me. I greeted them with a smile, as I always did. "Good morning." Michael did not even turn around, but one of his friends, a heavy-set man with dark glasses, looked me up and down with that look women know well, that look that measures, that judges, that despises. "Is she your gardener?" he asked Michael. Michael laughed. "No, she is my mother-in-law." The three of them laughed, but it was not a kind laugh. It was a laugh that turned me into a joke. "Well, at least she is useful," said another friend. They walked toward the car, still laughing. I stayed there on my knees in the dirt with the pruning shears in my hand, feeling something cold run through my chest. At least she is useful. Those words stuck in me like thorns. I went into the house and washed my hands in silence. Sarah was in the kitchen drinking a green juice, the kind she now drank to stay thin. "Mom, did you see where I left my black bag? I need it for tonight." She did not ask how I was. She did not notice the expression on my face. She did not see the tears I was holding back. "In your closet, honey." I hung it up after cleaning it. "Thanks, Mom. You're a sweetheart." And she left. I stayed alone in the kitchen looking at my wrinkled hands stained with dirt and bleach, hands that had worked a whole lifetime to give my daughter a better future. And now those hands only served to clean the house of a man who saw me as furniture. But I kept silent. I kept enduring. Because I believed that a mother love meant that. Enduring everything. Forgiving everything. Sacrificing for everything. I still did not know that love also means respecting oneself. Weeks passed and the fractures became bigger. One night, Michael organized a dinner with his business partners. There were 8 important people, all with expensive suits and watches that shined. Sarah had dressed up like never before with an elegant blue dress and her hair tied back. She looked beautiful but distant, as if she were another person. I spent all day cooking. I made garlic shrimp beef Wellington mushroom risotto salad with raspberry vinaigrette. I set the table with white tablecloths, candles, fresh flowers. Everything had to be perfect. When the guests arrived, I served dinner. I filled wine glasses, brought plates, took away the dirty ones. I moved through the dining room like a silent ghost. At one point, one of the women stopped me. "Excuse me, could you bring me more bread?" "Of course, ma'am." When I came back with the bread basket, I heard the conversation they were having. "This house is beautiful, Michael, and you can tell it is very well kept," said one of the men. "Yes, well, Sarah is very organized and her mom lives with us, so she helps us with household things. She helps us." I wanted to scream, "Helps." But I said nothing. I left the bread on the table and went back to the kitchen. Sarah came in behind me a few minutes later. "Mom, everything is delicious. The guests are delighted." I looked at her. "My daughter, my Sarah. Why am I not sitting at that table with you?" The words came out on their own. I had not planned them, but they sprang up like something that had been buried for a long time. Sarah stayed silent. She opened her mouth to say something, but the words did not come out. "Mom, it is just that they are Michael partners. It is a business dinner. I am your mother, Sarah. I am family. I know, Mom. But it is complicated." "Complicated," Sarah bit her lip. I saw something in her eyes that broke my heart. Shame. My daughter felt shame for me. "Mom, you do not understand how these things are. Michael, people are different. They have expectations, and I do not meet those expectations." She did not answer. She only looked at me with those sad and guilty eyes that told me everything her words could not. She left the kitchen without saying more. I stood there in front of the sink with my hands shaking. For the first time in my life, I felt that I had lost my daughter. Not to death, not to distance, to something worse, to the shame of who I was. That night, I washed the dishes, crying in silence. The guests left late, laughing and happy. Michael said goodbye at the door like the perfect host. Sarah smiled beside him, the perfect wife, and I was the perfect shadow. I went up to my room past midnight. I took out the photograph of Santa Monica and looked at it under the lamplight. "Where are you?" I asked that young and free woman. "Where did you go?" But she only looked at me from the paper, frozen in a time that no longer existed. I kept the photograph in the nightstand drawer along with Sarah drawing from when she was a child, two memories of a life that seemed to have been just a dream. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The routine was always the same. Get up before dawn, prepare coffee clean, cook, serve, keep quiet, disappear. But something was changing inside me. Something small, almost imperceptible, but real. One afternoon, while ironing Michael's shirts, I stared at a coffee stain on one of them. It was a big stain, hard to remove. I thought about simply ironing it like that, leaving it. What did it matter? He never thanked me anyway. But I did not do it. I rubbed the stain with soap, soaked it, washed it by hand until it came out. Why? Because I was not ready to rebel yet. Because I still believed that if I did everything perfectly, if I was useful enough, invisible enough, good enough, then they would love me. How foolish I had been. One Sunday afternoon, Sarah and I were alone at home. Michael had gone to the club with his friends. I was in the kitchen making chicken soup when Sarah came in and sat at the counter. "Mom, I need to tell you something." My heart skipped a beat. It had been months since Sarah sat down to talk to me like this. Just the two of us. "Tell me, honey." "Michael and I are thinking of remodeling the house. We want to make the kitchen bigger, modernize the bathrooms, change the floors." "That is great, honey." Sarah played with her hands, nervous. "The thing is, it is going to be expensive. And since you are living here without paying rent or anything..." She stopped. I felt the ground move beneath my feet. "What are you saying, Sarah? It is not that we want to charge you, Mom. But Michael says it would be fair if you contributed in some way, with money or, I do not know. Helping more with the house. The wooden spoon fell from my hands. Helping more, Sarah, I do everything in this house. Everything. I get up before you. I go to bed after you. I cook, clean, wash, iron. What else do you want me to do?" Sarah turned red. "Mom, do not get mad. It is just that Michael says..." Michael says, "And what do you say, Sarah?" "What do you think?" My daughter lowered her gaze. And in that silence, I understood everything. She thought the same as him. She saw the same as him. To her, I was also just a convenient burden. "Forget it, Mom. I do not want to fight." She got up and left the kitchen. I stood there shaking with tears burning my eyes. That night, I could not sleep. I tossed and turned in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, feeling a pain in my chest that was not physical, but hurt more than any illness. I got up at 3 in the morning and went down to the kitchen. The house was dark and silent. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the dining table, at that table where they never invited me to sit when there were guests. I looked around. The elegant furniture, the expensive curtains, the paintings on the walls, everything so perfect, so tidy, so clean, all thanks to me. But I did not exist in that house. I was a ghost that cleaned, cooked, and served. A ghost without a voice, without value, without dignity. And the worst of all is that I had allowed that to happen. I went back to my room when it started to dawn. I took the photograph of Santa Monica out of the drawer and looked at it for a long time. "Forgive me," I whispered to that young and free woman. "Forgive me for forgetting you. Forgive me for letting them treat me like this. Forgive me for not defending myself." But something was being born inside me. Something small, fragile, but powerful. The crack had become a fracture, And fractures, when they are deep, never close again in the same way. I still wonder if I did the right thing by staying silent for so long. And you? What would you have done in my place? There is a difference between accepting and submitting. Accepting is a conscious choice. Submitting is losing the ability to choose. I had submitted without realizing it. After that conversation with Sarah about contributing financially, something changed in the house. Or maybe nothing changed and I simply started seeing it more clearly. Michael stopped hiding his contempt. One morning while I was mopping the living room floor, he walked by with his dirty shoes stepping right where I had just cleaned. It was not an accident. I saw it in his eyes. He did it on purpose. Michael, I just mopped. He stopped and looked at me with that cold smile he had perfected. Well, mop again, Emily. That is what you live here for, right? He left, leaving a trail of mud on the freshly cleaned floor. I stood there with the mop in my hand, feeling something dark and heavy settle in my stomach. But I said nothing. I went back to cleaning the floor in silence. That is how submission is built. One silence at a time. The following weeks were a downward spiral. Michael started giving me orders in front of other people, as if I were part of the domestic staff. At family gatherings, at dinners with friends, even on the street. One Saturday, the three of us went to the supermarket. Sarah needed to buy things for a party they were going to organize. I went with them because Michael said they needed someone to carry the bags. While we walked through the aisles, Michael was throwing things into the cart without looking at prices. Expensive wines, imported cheeses, select meats. Sarah walked beside him, checking a list on her phone. I pushed the cart behind them, invisible. In the checkout line, Michael realized he had forgotten something. Emily, go get some napkins. The red ones, the expensive brand. It was not a request. It was an order. I practically ran looking for napkins among the aisles. When I came back, they had already finished paying. Michael handed me all the bags. Take this to the car. We are going to the coffee shop. I looked at Sarah, hoping she would say something. That she would say, Mom, come with us, or is put the bags in the car together, but she just checked her phone. I carried 8 heavy bags to the parking lot under the burning midday sun. My arms trembled from the effort. My feet hurt. I was 58 years old and carrying weight as if I were 20. When I finished arranging everything in the car, I sat in the back seat and waited. Half an hour passed. 40 minutes. An hour. Finally, they appeared laughing with iced coffees in their hands. Sorry for the delay, said Sarah without really looking at me. We ran into some friends. They had not brought me anything to drink. They had not even thought of me. During the ride home, I heard Sarah and Michael talking about the party, about who they were going to invite, about what music they were going to play. I looked out the window with a dry throat, wondering at what moment I had turned into this, into a nobody. But the worst were not the orders or the public scorn. The worst was the way I myself had started to believe that this was what I deserved. There were nights when I looked in the bathroom mirror and did not recognize the woman staring back. I had gray, unkempt hair, dull skin, lifeless eyes, old and stained clothes. When had I stopped caring? When had I accepted that my only function was to serve? One afternoon, I found an old dress in my closet. It was a blue dress with white flowers that I had bought years ago, when I still went out with friends, when I still had a life of my own. I tried it on, and it was loose. I had lost weight without realizing it. The constant work, the stress, the sleepless nights, thinking about everything I had to do the next day. I looked at myself in the mirror wearing that dress and burst into tears. That woman in the mirror was not me. It could not be me, but it was. I took off the dress and put it at the back of the closet. It made no sense to keep nice clothes. There were no longer occasions to wear them. There was no longer anyone to see me. Months passed, and the dynamic of the house became more toxic. Michael started making comments about my age, about my appearance, about my uselessness for anything other than cleaning and cooking. Emily, You are too old to understand how the modern world works. Why do you want a new phone? You do not even know how to use the one you have. At your age, you should be grateful that someone gives you a roof. And Sarah. My Sarah kept quiet. Or worse, sometimes she laughed. One night, the three of us were having dinner. I had made pot roast one of Sarah's favorite dishes since she was a little girl. I had spent hours cooking, preparing all the sides, roasting the vegetables. I put the plates on the table and sat with them. Lately, they did not even invite me to sit down, but that night I decided to do it anyway. It was my food, my effort. I deserved to sit at the table. Michael looked at me with annoyance. Are you not going to bring the dinner rolls? They are already on the table. I replied, pointing to the basket. They are cold. They need to be warmed up. I stared at him. For a moment, something in me rebelled, something small but fierce. You can warm them up yourself. The oven is on. The silence that followed was heavy as a slab. Michael put the spoon on the table with a sharp thud. Sarah looked at me with wide eyes as if telling me to shut up, not to cause problems. "Excuse me," said Michael with that dangerously calm voice. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. But something inside me had activated something that had been asleep for a long time. I said, "You can warm them up yourself." "Mom, I will go," Sarah interrupted, getting up quickly. "No, Sarah, your mom will go. Right, Emily?" The way he said my name, with such contempt, with such cruelty. Sarah looked at me pleadingly. "Mom, please." And there it was again, my daughter plea for me to keep the peace, for me to swallow my dignity, for me to continue being the one who submits. I got up without a word, warmed the rolls, put them on the table, sat down again, but something had changed. That small spark of rebellion had not gone out completely. It was still there, tiny but alive. Days became harder. Michael had found a new way to humiliate me, absolute indifference. He no longer gave me orders directly. He simply told Sarah what he needed, and Sarah passed it on to me. "Mom, Michael says the house needs a deep cleaning this weekend." "Mom, Michael wants you to make that chicken you made the other time." "Mom, Michael needs you to wash his car before noon." My daughter had become the intermediary of my own humiliation, and I kept obeying. I kept cleaning, cooking, serving, because deep down I still believed that if I was good enough, useful enough, eventually they would see me. They would value me. They would love me. How naive I had been. One Thursday afternoon, while cleaning Michael's study, I found something I should not have seen. It was a conversation on his computer that he had left open. It was not my intention to read, but something caught my attention. It was a chat with one of his friends. "Does your mother-in-law still live with you?" the friend wrote. "Yes, the useless old woman is still here," Michael replied. "But at least she serves for something. She saves us a fortune in domestic help, and we do not even have to pay her." Several laughing emojis followed. "Smart brother. Take advantage while you can." That is what I do. Sarah says nothing. She's so used to her mom doing everything that she does, not even notice anymore. I froze staring at that screen. A fortune in domestic help. The useless old woman. Take advantage while you can. I felt something cold and heavy settle in my chest. It was not surprise. It was not pain. It was something worse. It was confirmation. I knew somewhere deep in my being that Michael despised me. But reading it like that, so raw, so cruel, with that complicit laughter of his friend, showed me something I had been denying. I was not family to him. I was free labor. And Sarah allowed it. I closed the laptop carefully and finished cleaning the study. My hands were shaking, but I kept working. I dusted the bookshelves, vacuumed the rug, cleaned the windows, because that is what a submissive woman does. She keeps working even when her heart is broken. That night, while preparing dinner, Sarah came into the kitchen, humming. She was in a good mood. "Smells good, Mom. What are you making, lasagna?" My favorite. You are the best." I looked at her. My daughter. My little girl, the person for whom I had sacrificed everything. Sarah, do you think I am useful? She stopped smiling. What? Of course, Mom. Why do you ask that? Just useful or something else, Mom, I do not understand. Do you love me because I am your mother or because I clean your house? Sarah turned pale. Mom, where is that coming from? Of course I love you. You are my mom. But you never defend me. You never say anything to Michael when he treats me poorly. Why, Sarah? My daughter lowered her gaze. I saw her hands tremble. It is complicated, Mom. No, it is not. Either you defend me or you do not. There is no middle ground. Mom, please. I do not want to fight. Michael is my husband. I have to keep the peace. And me who keeps my peace. She did not answer. She just left the kitchen with tears in her eyes. That night, we ate in silence. Michael did not even notice the tension. He devoured his lasagna, drank his beer, checked his phone. When he finished, he left the dirty plate on the table and went to watch TV. Sarah picked up her plate, and his took them to the sink and went up to her room without looking at me. I was left alone in the dining room with my untouched plate of lasagna in front of me. I looked around that perfect, clean, orderly house. A house that I kept running. A house where I did not exist. That night, before sleeping, I took the photograph of Santa Monica out of the drawer. I promise you something I told that young and free woman. I promise you I am going to find you again. I do not know how, I do not know when, but I am going to find you. I kept the photograph next to my heart and closed my eyes. I did not know it yet, but something was about to change. Something I did not control, but that the universe had already set in motion. While I tell all this, I think about where you might be listening to me. Write the name of your city in the comments. They say the truth always finds a way to come to light, but sometimes the truth does not arrive all at once. It arrives in small pieces, in details that accumulate until you can no longer ignore them. I had been living in that house for almost 2 years. 2 years of serving, cleaning, cooking, silencing. 2 years of becoming a shadow. But shadows see things people do not notice. It all started one October morning. I was cleaning Sarah's room while she and Michael had gone out for breakfast. I liked cleaning her room when they were not there. It allowed me to feel close to my daughter, even if it was touching her things, folding her clothes, organizing her perfumes. While making the bed, something fell from between the sheets. It was a white envelope sealed with Michael's name, written by hand. I picked it up to put it on his nightstand, but something caught my attention. The envelope was open on one side as if someone had torn it in a hurry. Inside, a paper was peeking out. I should not have read it, I know, but something in me, that new voice that had started to wake up, pushed me to do it. It was a letter from a lawyer. Dear Mr. Michael Miller, in reference to your inquiry regarding the possibility of legal acquisition of the property located at 247 Maple Street, we inform you that according to the Public Property Registry, said property remains under the sole ownership of Mrs. Emily Carter. My heart stopped beating for a second. I kept reading with shaking hands. There is no co-ownership or transfer of rights. To proceed with the transfer of ownership, signed consent from the current owner is required. In case of death, without a will, inheritance would pass automatically to direct descendant. Mrs. Sarah Miller, née Carter. I read the letter 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. Michael was investigating how to keep my house. The humble little house where I had raised Sarah, the house I had paid for working double shifts for 20 years, the house that was the only thing I had left in the world, and he wanted to take it from me. But the worst was not that. The worst was what came next in the letter. We recommend documenting the mental health status and decision-making capacity of the owner, especially considering her advanced age. Such documents can be useful in a future legal process of incapacitation. I sat on the bed still holding the letter. Incapacitation. They wanted to declare me incapable to keep my house. I do not know how long I sat there looking at those words. Tears blurred my vision, but I kept reading it over and over again as if reading it again could change what it said. I heard the car in the driveway. I put the letter back in the envelope, quickly left it where I had found it. I finished making the bed with trembling hands. When Sarah and Michael entered the house, I was in the kitchen washing breakfast dishes, pretending normality. But inside, everything had changed. The following days were strange. I started to observe, to pay attention, to see what I had ignored before. I noticed that Michael spent a lot of time in his study with the door closed, talking on the phone in a low voice. I noticed that Sarah avoided my gaze more than before. I noticed that when they talked to each other and I entered the room, they fell silent abruptly. One afternoon while cleaning Michael's study, I saw he had left a folder open on his desk. It was a folder with legal documents. I looked toward the door. There was no one. I opened the folder carefully. Inside were papers about my house property appraisals, photos of the exterior and interior calculations of how much it would be worth if they remodeled and sold it. There was a note written by hand by Michael. Excellent location. With remodeling could be sold for $450,000. Net profit. $380,000 after investment in remodeling. Estimated time. 6 to 8 months once property is acquired. I felt like I was running out of air. Not only did they want my house, they already had a complete plan. They had already calculated how much money they would make selling it. I closed the folder exactly as I had found it. I left the study. I went down the stairs slowly, holding on to the railing because my legs were shaking. I locked myself in my room and sat on the bed. Everything made sense now. Everything. That is why Sarah had asked me to move in with them, not out of love, not out of concern. It was part of a plan. If I sold my house and moved in with them, I would lose my only security. I would become completely dependent on them, without a house, without a place to go, trapped. And then, when I no longer had anything, they could do whatever they wanted with me. I got up and went to the bathroom mirror. I looked at the woman reflected there, that 58-year-old woman with gray hair, tired skin, sad eyes. What are they going to do with you when you no longer serve them? I asked that woman. What will happen when you are too old to clean, too sick to cook? The answer was obvious. They would leave me in some nursing home or worse on the street, because to them I was not family. I was an investment that eventually would stop being profitable. That night, I could not sleep. I stayed staring at the ceiling, listening to the noises of the house, the wind in the windows, the living room clock marking the hours, Michael's footsteps going to the bathroom at midnight. I thought about everything I had sacrificed for Sarah, the years of hard work, the sleepless nights when she was sick, the birthdays where I gave her everything even if I had nothing, the times I ate plain rice so she could eat meat, the old clothes I wore so I could buy her new uniforms, the broken shoes I walked in so she would have pretty shoes. All that love, all that sacrifice for this, so she would see me as an object, so she would plan to steal the only thing I had left. At 3 a.m, I went down to the kitchen. I needed water, I needed air, I needed something to anchor me to reality because I felt I was losing my sanity. I turned on the kitchen light and froze. Sarah was there, sitting in the dark with a glass of wine in her hand. "Mom, you scared me. You scared me too. What are you doing awake?" Sarah took a long sip of wine before answering. "I cannot sleep." I poured myself water and sat in front of her. We stayed in silence for a moment. There were so many things I wanted to tell her, so many things I wanted to ask her. "Sarah, are you happy?" My daughter looked at me surprised. "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one." "Are you happy?" Sarah lowered her gaze to her wine glass. "I have everything I need. A nice house, a successful husband's security. I did not ask you what you have. I asked if you are happy." Silence. Sometimes she said finally with a voice so low I barely heard it. Only sometimes Sarah finished the wine in one gulp. "Mom, it is late. We should sleep." She got up to leave, but I stopped her, taking her by the arm. "Sarah, look at me." She looked at me, and in her eyes I saw something that broke my heart. I saw my little girl, that girl who drew with crayons and told me I was the best mom in the world. "What happened to us?" I asked her. "What happened to my Sarah?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Mom, do not do this." "Do what?" "Ask you why you let your husband treat me like trash. Ask you why you never defend me. Ask you why you stay silent while he humiliates me, because he is my husband, Mom, because I have to live with him, because if I contradict him, if I defend you, then everything becomes harder for everyone. For everyone." "Or for you," Sarah pulled her hand away. "You do not understand anything. You do not know what it is to be married. You do not know what it is to have to keep the peace in a marriage. You are right. I do not know what it is to be married, but I know what it is to be a mother, and a mother does not let them mistreat her daughter. But it seems a daughter can let them mistreat her mother." Sarah looked at me with eyes full of tears and rage. "I did not ask you to do everything you did for me. I did not ask you to sacrifice so much. That was your decision." Her words hit me like a slap. "My decision, Sarah, you were my daughter, my responsibility, my life." "It was not a decision. It was love." "Well, maybe you loved too much. Maybe you gave me so much that now I do not know how to pay you back." She left the kitchen before I could answer. I was left alone in that dark kitchen with her words echoing in my ears. "Maybe you loved too much." Can one love too much? Is that possible? Or maybe the problem was not how much I had loved. Maybe the problem was who I had loved. The following days were tense. Sarah avoided me. Michael was crueler than ever, as if he could sense something had changed in me. One afternoon, he ordered me to clean the entire garage. It was a huge job, taking all day. It was hot, there was dust everywhere, heavy boxes to move. I want it spotless by tomorrow. An important client is coming and is going to see the garage. I worked for 8 hours under the sun, entering through the open door. My hands bled from moving old boxes with rusty nails. My back hurt so much I could barely stand up straight. When I finished, Michael came to inspect. He walked through the garage for 2 minutes, looking at everything with that owner expression he always had. Then he stopped in front of me. Acceptable. That was it. Acceptable. No thank you, no recognition. Not even a glass of water after 8 hours of work. That night, while healing my hands, I looked at the photograph of Santa Monica. Almost there, I whispered to that young woman, "I am almost finding you again." 2 weeks after discovering the lawyer letter, something happened that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my room folding clothes when I heard Sarah and Michael talking in their bedroom. Normally, I did not listen to their conversations, but this time something in Michael's tone of voice alerted me. I got closer to the door and paid attention. "She cannot stay here forever, Sarah." "I know. But what do you want me to do? She is my mom." "Your mom, who does not pay rent, who does not contribute financially, who only spends our resources. She does everything in the house, Michael. That has value. Yes. But we could hire someone who does the same thing and does not live here. Someone who comes, cleans, and leaves. Your mom is occupying a space we could use as an office or as a nursery if one day—" He fell silent. "Nursery?" Sarah asked. "It is just an example. The point is, we need that space, and your mom has a house. She can go back there. Her house is very neglected. It has been empty for 2 years. We'll let her fix it or sell it and buy something smaller, an apartment, a studio, something appropriate for a woman her age living alone." There was a long silence. "And if she does not want to?" Sarah asked with a small voice. Michael laughed. "Does not want to, Sarah. She has no power here. She lives in our house. If we tell her she has to go, she goes. Simple as that." "It is not that simple, Michael. She is my mom." "Exactly. She is your mom. She is not my mom. And this is my house. Well, our house. but I pay for everything. So I decide who lives here and who does not. Another silence. Are you asking me to kick my mom out? I am not asking you to kick her out. I am asking you to talk to her, to explain that it would be better for everyone if she goes back to her house. You say it nicely with love, but you say it. And if she refuses, then yes, we kick her out. I did not hear Sarah answer because I walked away from the door. I went into my room and locked it. I sat on the bed shaking. They wanted to kick me out. After 2 years of exploiting me, of using me, of humiliating me, now they wanted to get rid of me as if I were trash. But the worst of all was knowing that Sarah was considering it, that my daughter was thinking about kicking me out. I opened my nightstand drawer and took out the photograph of Santa Monica. I looked at it for a long time. Soon, I promised her. Very soon. Because something was about to happen. Something I did not know yet, but destiny had already prepared. Something that would change everything. There are moments in life that divide time in two, the before and the after. For me, that moment arrived on a gray Wednesday in November. I was cleaning the upstairs bathroom when I heard Sarah phone ring in her room. She had run out to work and forgotten it on the bed. Normally, I did not mess with her things, but the phone rang 3 times in a row. I thought it might be an emergency. I went into her room and looked at the screen. It was a message from Michael's sister Ashley, and what I read on the screen froze my blood. Did you talk to your mom yet about what we discussed? Michael is desperate to get her out of there. He says he cannot stand having her in the house anymore. The previous message said, "My brother is right. Your mom has already crossed the line. 2 years living for free is too much. Besides, if you get her house, you can make good money. My brother already has everything calculated." I kept scrolling up in the conversation with shaking hands. Sarah had replied weeks ago. "I know Ash, but she is my mom. I cannot simply kick her out like that." "Well, you will have to do it, or Michael will do it for you. And believe me, he is not going to be nice. I am looking for a way to tell her. Maybe after Christmas. After Christmas, Sarah, it is already November. Your brother wants her gone before Christmas. He does not want to spend another Christmas with her in the house. It is just difficult, Ash. I feel like I am doing something horrible to her. You are not doing anything horrible. You are giving her back her independence. Besides, she has her own house. It is not like you are leaving her on the street. Michael wants us to ask for the house. He says it is fair after everything we have done for her. He is right. You guys have given her a roof and food for 2 years. That is worth a lot. Her little house is the minimum she can give in return. I do not know, Ash. I feel bad. Well, do not feel bad. Think about your future, about your children. That house is worth money. Money you need. The phone turned off in my hands. I stood there in the middle of my daughter room, feeling the floor opening beneath my feet. It was not just Michael. It was Sarah, too. The two of them had planned this. The two of them wanted my house. The two of them wanted to get rid of me. And the worst part, Sarah felt bad, but she was going to do it anyway. I do not know how I went down the stairs. I do not know how I got to my room. Everything was blurry as if I were walking underwater. I sat on the bed and looked around that small room where I had lived the last 2 years. The white and empty walls, the narrow bed, the small closet with my old clothes, the nightstand with the photograph of Santa Monica. This was all I had. This room, this photograph, this miserable life. But no, I still had something else. I had my house, my humble little house on Maple Street, the house I had paid for with the sweat of my brow, the house where I had raised Sarah, the house that was the only thing I had left in the world, and they wanted to take it from me. I opened my nightstand drawer and took out all the important papers I kept there, the deed to my house, my birth certificate, my ID, some savings I had hidden in an envelope, $3,500 I had saved from tips they sometimes gave me when I helped with Sarah friends' parties. I looked at those papers for a long time. Then I put them all in a plastic bag and hid them at the bottom of my closet behind the old shoe boxes. I did not know what I was going to do yet. But something inside me had awakened, something fierce and determined. They were not going to take my house. They were not going to kick me out like trash. They were not going to keep using me. Not anymore. The following days were the hardest of my life. I had to act normal. I had to keep cleaning, cooking, serving. I had to smile when Sarah talked to me. I had to keep quiet when Michael ordered me to do things. But inside, everything had changed. I looked at them differently now. I listened to them differently. I saw their fake smiles, their empty words, their calculated gestures. One night, Sarah found me looking out the kitchen window. "What are you thinking about, Mom? Nothing important, honey." She came closer and hugged me from behind. I felt her warm body against my back, her chin on my shoulder, like when she was a child and looked for me to comfort her. "I love you, Mom." Those 3 words that used to fill my heart now sounded hollow. "I love you too, Sarah." But while I said it, I thought, do you really love me? Or do you just want my house? Sarah pulled away from me and poured water. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important." My heart raced. Here it comes, I thought. Here comes the conversation where she asks me to leave. "Tell me, daughter." Sarah played with the glass of water in her hands, nervous. "It is about Christmas. Michael wants to have a big dinner this year. Invite his parents, his brothers, some important clients. Something elegant. That is fine. I can cook whatever you need." "Yes, well, that is what I wanted to talk to you about. Michael says that maybe it would be better to hire a catering service, so you can enjoy the dinner as a guest without having to cook." I stared at her. "As a guest, yes, so you can sit at the table with us, talk, have a good time without worrying about the food." It was a lie. I knew it. Michael did not want me to enjoy myself. Michael did not want me to sit at the table. But Sarah was trying to sell me the idea as if it were something good for me. "I understand," I said simply. "Yes, does it not bother you?" "No, honey. Do what you want. It is your house." Sarah's face lit up. "Thanks, Mom. I knew you would understand." She left happy, leaving me alone in the kitchen. But I knew the truth. The Christmas dinner was not for me to enjoy. It was a stage. A stage where Michael was going to humiliate me in front of his family and friends, where he was going to make my position in that house clear, and probably after that dinner, Sarah was going to ask me to leave. I had to be ready. 2 weeks before Christmas, I did something I had never done before. I left the house without telling anyone where I was going. I took the bus to my old neighborhood, to Maple Street, to my house. It had been 2 years since I last visited. I walked slowly down that street that had been my home for so many years. The same trees, the same neighbors' houses, the same cracks in the sidewalk. I stopped in front of my house and felt something break inside me. It was neglected. The paint was peeling. The garden was full of weeds. The windows were dirty. The door had a rusty padlock. I took out the keys I always carried with me and opened it. The smell of stale air hit me immediately. I walked in slowly as if I were entering a museum of my own life. Everything was covered in dust. The furniture I had left, the old curtains, the photographs on the walls. I walked through the living room, through the kitchen, through the room that had been Sarah's bedroom. In every corner there was a memory. The marks on the wall where I measured Sarah every birthday, the table where we did homework together, the stove where I taught her to cook, the armchair where we cuddled to watch movies on Sundays. This house was my life, my story, my heart, and they wanted to take it from me to sell it and make money. I sat on the living room floor and cried. I cried for everything I had lost, for the Sarah who drew with crayons, for the Emily who was strong and free, for the years I had wasted trying to buy love with sacrifice. I cried until I had no tears left. When I got up, something had changed inside me. I looked around that empty house and made a promise. This house is mine. I paid for it with my sweat and tears, and no one is going to take it from me. No one. I left the house, locked it, and went back. When I arrived, Sarah asked me where I had been. I went to run some errands. I lied. It was the first time I lied to my daughter, but I was no longer the same woman I had been. I was no longer the woman who told the truth only to be punished for it. The week before Christmas, Michael started making more direct comments. "Emily, after the holidays, we need to talk about your situation here." My situation? Yes, about how much longer you are going to stay. Sarah and I have plans for the house, and we need the space. I looked at him without saying anything. "Do not worry, we are not going to leave you on the street." He continued with that fake smile. "You have your house. You can go back there. Or if you want to sell it, we can help you. I have real estate contacts. They would give you a good price." "How kind," I said with a voice I did not recognize as mine. Michael looked at me strangely, as if he had noticed something different in my tone, but he said nothing else. That night, while everyone slept, I went down to the kitchen and took out my old recipe book, the one I had used for years, to write down dishes, birthdays, memories. On the last page, I wrote, December 22nd. Michael told me I have to leave after Christmas. He wants me to sell my house. Sarah has said nothing. She has not defended me. She has not said, "No, Mom, stay." Nothing. Today I understood that my daughter loves me, but not enough. She loves me less than she loves her comfort. She loves me less than she loves her marriage. She loves me less than she loves money. And I have been a fool. I have been blind. I have allowed them to treat me like this because I thought sacrifice was love. But sacrifice without respect is not love. It is slavery. I do not know what is going to happen at Christmas, but I know that something has to change, because this Emily who scrubs toilets and endures humiliations, this Emily has to die so the true Emily can live again. I closed the notebook and put it away. I went up to my room and looked at the photograph of Santa Monica for the last time that night. Almost there, I whispered. The moment is almost here. 3 days before Christmas, something happened that I did not expect. I was cleaning the guest room when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello, Mrs. Emily Carter." "Yes, it is me. This is the State Lottery Commission calling. We have important news for you." My heart stopped beating for a second. News. "The ticket you bought last month in the special Christmas draw was a winner." The world stopped. "Winner, yes, ma'am. Winner of the jackpot, $27 million. The phone almost fell from my hands. "Is this a joke?" "No, ma'am. It is not a joke. We need you to come to our offices to validate your ticket and claim your prize. Do you have the ticket in your possession?" I thought about the ticket I had bought a month ago. A silly impulse after finding $5 in the pocket of some old pants. I had passed by a lottery stand on my way to the market and bought it without thinking much. Yes, I have it. Perfect. Can you come tomorrow at 10 in the morning? The address is... I wrote everything down with trembling hands. When I hung up, I stood in the middle of that room in shock. $27 million. I ran up to my room and looked for the ticket. I had kept it in an old book between the pages without giving it importance. I took it out carefully and looked at it. The numbers, the date, the official seal. It was real. I sat on the bed holding that piece of paper that was worth $27 million and started to laugh. I laughed like I had not laughed in years. I laughed until tears ran down my cheeks. I laughed until my stomach hurt. The universe, destiny, God, whoever it was, had heard me. I looked at the photograph of Santa Monica. I found you. I told that young and free woman. I finally found you. I kept the ticket in a safe place. I did not say anything to anyone. This was my card, my salvation, my freedom, and I was not going to show it until the perfect moment, until Christmas dinner. I still wonder if I did the right thing by staying quiet for so many days. And you, what would you have done in my place? The morning of December 24th dawned cold and gray. I got up at 5 as always, but that morning was different. That morning, everything was different. The day before I had gone to the lottery offices, I had validated my ticket. I had signed papers. I had listened to the lawyers explain the process. The money would be available in my account in 72 hours. $27 million. But no one knew. Not Sarah, not Michael, no one. I had kept all the documents in a folder inside my suitcase, an old suitcase that I already had packed with all my clothes, my photographs, my memories, everything ready to leave. Only the dinner was missing. I spent all day getting ready. I bathed with care. I put on a navy blue dress that I had bought years ago and never worn. I put on makeup for the first time in months. I fixed my hair. I put on some pearl earrings that had been my mother. When I went down the stairs at 6 in the evening, Sarah looked at me surprised. "Mom, you look beautiful." "Thank you, honey." Michael was in the living room putting on his jacket. He looked me up and down with barely disguised contempt. "Wow, Emily, you made an effort." I did not answer. I just smiled. The house was decorated elegantly. The catering service had arrived early and prepared everything. The dining table was set with white tablecloths, fine china crystal glasses, centerpieces with expensive flowers. It was beautiful, like a magazine scene. At 7, the guests started to arrive. Michael parents an older couple with airs of superiority. Michael brothers with their groomed wives and perfect smiles. 3 couples of Michael important clients all dressed impeccably. In total, we were 16 people. Everyone greeted me with cold courtesy. "Nice to meet you. Good evening." What a lovely house. No one knew who I really was. No one asked. I sat at the table in the farthest corner between a client of Michael and Michael's mother. Sarah was at the other end next to Michael like the perfect hosts. Dinner began. The catering waiters served the dishes. Arugula salad with pear and goat cheese pumpkin cream soup with croutons, glazed salmon with pistachio crust mushroom risotto steak with red wine sauce. Everything perfect. Everything elegant. Everything expensive. And I, sitting at that table, was invisible. No one spoke to me. No one asked me anything. When Michael's mother passed me the salt, she did it without looking at me, as if I were part of the service. After the main course before dessert, Michael stood up with his wine glass in hand. "I want to make an announcement." He spoke with that successful salesman voice he used with his clients. Everyone raised their glasses. "Thank you all for joining us this Christmas Eve. Sarah and I are very happy to share this night with our family and dearest friends." Smiles, soft applause. "This year has been wonderful for us. The company has grown. Our house is beautiful, and we have many exciting plans for next year." He looked at Sarah with fake affection. She smiled. "We also want to thank those who have supported us during this time. Our families, our friends, our collaborators." He paused. He looked at me. "And also Emily. Sarah, Mom, who has been living with us and has helped us with household chores." Everyone looked at me then. Polite smiles, courteous nods. "Emily has been very useful." Michael continued with that cruel smile I knew so well. Very hardworking, very servile. The way he said servile made something cold run down my back. In fact, Michael continued pouring himself more wine. "I think Emily has done so much for us that she deserves special recognition." Sarah looked at him confused. I looked at him too, waiting. Emily said, Michael looking directly at me, "Why do not you go to the kitchen and bring us more bread? The bread on the table is already cold." Silence. Everyone looked at me. Michael smiled. "Go on, Emily. We do not want our guests to eat cold bread." I felt time stop. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment for which I had prepared everything. I stood up slowly. "Michael," I said with a calm voice, "I think you are confused." His smile froze. "Excuse me," I said, "you are confused. I am not the help. I am your wife, mother, and I am a guest at this dinner. So no, I am not going to go get bread." The silence that followed was absolute. Michael turned red. "Emily, do not make a scene. A scene me or you, who just treated me like a servant in front of all these guests." Sarah stood up. "Mom, please." "No, Sarah. No, please. Not anymore." I turned to Michael, who looked at me with barely contained hatred. You know what, Michael? You are right about something. I have been very useful. For 2 years, I have cleaned your house, washed your clothes, cooked your food, served your guests. I have worked like a slave without receiving a single dollar, not a thank you, not a bit of respect. Emily, if you do not like how things are here, you can leave. Oh, I am going to leave. Do not worry. But first, I want everyone here to know something. I looked around the table. Everyone watched me with a mixture of shock and curiosity. Michael has been planning to kick me out of this house. Rather, he has been planning to force me to give him my house. My house that I paid for, working for 20 years. The house where I raised my daughter alone without anyone help. He wants me to give it to him or sell it so he can keep the money. Michael's mother opened her eyes in surprise. That is not true, Michael started. It is completely true. I found your lawyer letter. I saw the appraisals. I read your plans to remodel and sell it. You already had everything calculated right, a net profit of $300,000 after the investment. Michael turned pale. You went through my private things. I reviewed what you left in plain sight while I cleaned your study. That study that I cleaned every day. I turned to Sarah. And you, daughter. You knew everything. I read your messages with Ashley. You knew Michael wanted to kick me out. You knew he wanted my house. And you did nothing. You felt bad, yes, but you were going to let it happen anyway. Sarah had tears in her eyes. Mom, I did not know how to tell you. I did not want to hurt you. You did not want to hurt me. Sarah, you have hurt me every day for 2 years. Every time you let Michael humiliate me. Every time you stayed silent while he treated me like trash. Every time you asked me to do more, to work more, to sacrifice more. Tears ran down my cheeks, but my voice did not shake. I gave you everything, Sarah. Everything. I worked until I broke so you could have a good life. I sacrificed so you could study, so you could eat well, so you could have opportunities. And you paid me with betrayal. Mom, it is not betrayal. I love you. You do not love me enough. And that is what hurts the most. Not that you do not love me, but that you love me so little that you could sell me for a house, for money, for comfort. Michael finally exploded. Enough. This is ridiculous. Emily, you have been living in my house for 2 years without paying a cent, without contributing anything financially, and now you come to play the victim. You should be grateful. I laughed. A bitter, sad, but liberating laugh. Grateful, Michael. I have worked more in this house than any domestic employee. If I charged you for everything I have done, the cleaning, the meals, the laundry, the ironing, the shopping, the organizing, you would owe me more than you make in 6 months. I walked closer to him, looking him directly in the eyes. But you are right about something. This is your house, and I should not be here, because this house is full of cruelty, of lies, of people who do not know what respect is. Then get out, said Michael with contempt. Get out right now. Go to your miserable little house and live there with your memories. Let us see how long you last alone, you useless old woman. Useless old woman, I repeated. Those were the words you used in the chat with your friend. The useless old woman is still here, but at least she saves us a fortune in domestic help. Michael was left speechless. Yes, I read that too. I read everything. And now everyone here knows what kind of man you are. I turned to the table full of uncomfortable guests. Forgive me for ruining your dinner, but I needed this to come to light. I needed to speak my truth before leaving. I walked toward Sarah and put my hand on her shoulder. She looked at me with eyes full of tears and guilt. I love you, Sarah. I will always love you because that is what mothers do. We love even when they hurt us, even when they betray us, but loving does not mean staying where they destroy me. Loving does not mean allowing them to treat me without dignity. Mom, please do not leave like this. I have to leave Honey because if I stay, I will disappear completely. And there is still a part of me that wants to live. a part of me that deserves respect, a part of me that refused to die. I walked away from her and headed for the stairs. Emily shouted, "Michael, if you leave now, do not come back, and forget about your house. I will find a way to take it from you anyway." I stopped on the first step and turned to look at him, and then I smiled. A true, free, powerful smile. "Michael," I said with absolute calm, "there is something you do not know, something no one here knows." Everyone looked at me. 3 weeks ago, I bought a lottery ticket, a silly impulse with $5 I found in some old pants. I took out the folder I had hidden under my arm. Yesterday, I went to validate that ticket. Turns out I won the jackpot of the special Christmas draw. I opened the folder and took out the official document. $27 million. The silence was so deep that the ticking of the wall clock could be heard. $27 million. I repeated slowly, savoring every word. The money will be in my account in 3 days. Michael's face transformed completely. From contempt, it went to shock, from shock to disbelief, from disbelief to greed. "Emily, we love you." He started to stutter, to trip over his own words. "Emily, wait. There has been a misunderstanding. I never meant to—" "Sarah, tell your mom that—" "No," I interrupted him. "There is no misunderstanding. Everything is very clear. You hated me when you thought I had nothing, and now that you know I have money, you love me. But your love is worth nothing to me, because it is not love, it is greed." Sarah got up and ran to me. "Mom, please listen to me. I do love you. Really. Not for the money. I swear." I looked her in the eyes. I saw desperation there. I saw fear. I saw panic. But I did not see true love. "Sarah, if you really loved me, you would have defended me when I had nothing. You would have defended me when Michael humiliated me. You would have said, 'Stay, Mom,' instead of planning how to kick me out. Money changes nothing of what happened. It does not erase 2 years of mistreatment. It does not erase your silence. But Mom, I am going to leave you the house," I said calmly. Her eyes lit up with hope. "The house?" "Yes, this house where I have lived these 2 years. I leave it to you, only to you. Not to Michael, to you, because you are my daughter, and I love you, even if you did not know how to love me as I deserved." Sarah hugged me crying, "Thank you, Mom. Thank you. I promise you that—" "Do not promise me anything." I interrupted her gently. "I only hope that when you have your own children, you remember this night. Remember how it feels to be the mother who gives everything and receives humiliation in return. And I hope you are a better mother than you were a daughter." I separated from her and went up the stairs. In my room, I took the suitcase I already had prepared, the photograph of Santa Monica, Sarah drawing from when she was a child, my recipe book, my documents. Everything was ready. I went down the stairs for the last time. The guests were still at the table, petrified, as if they had just witnessed a play. Michael was sitting with his head in his hands. Sarah cried in silence. I walked to the door. "Emily, wait." Michael tried to say one more time, "Goodbye, Michael. I hope you find peace one day, and I hope you learn that people are not useful or useless. People are valuable simply for existing. But I do not think you will learn." I opened the door. Outside, a taxi was already waiting for me. I had called it before coming down to dinner. "Ma'am." "Where are we going?" asked the driver. I looked back one last time. I saw the illuminated house. I saw Sarah in the window watching me leave. "To the airport," I said. "I have a flight to Cancun at 11 tonight." The taxi started, and while we moved away from that house, from that life, from that pain, I took out the photograph of Santa Monica and looked at it. "I found you," I whispered. "I finally found you again." Tears ran down my cheeks, but they were different. Tears. They were tears of liberation. The plane took off at 11:40 at night. I was in the seat next to the window, watching the city lights get smaller and smaller. Every light that moved away was a memory I was leaving behind. Every mile of altitude was one more step towards freedom. In my lap rested the photograph of Santa Monica. The young woman in that portrait had finally returned. Not physically. I was still 58 years old with gray hair wrinkles on my face, but inside, that woman had returned. The woman who knew her worth. The woman who did not accept being treated like trash. The woman who chose her own life. During the flight, I could not sleep. I thought about Sarah, about her face when I told her I was leaving her the house, about her tears, about her desperation. Had I been too hard on her? No, I had been fair. Because a mother love does not mean allowing your children to destroy you. A mother love also means teaching them by example that every person deserves dignity. Even mothers, especially mothers. Sarah had learned from me that sacrifice was love, but I had taught her wrong. I had taught her that a mother has no limits, has no needs, has no right to defend herself. And now by leaving, I was teaching her something new. That love also requires respect. That sacrifice without reciprocity is not love, it is abuse. That walking away from those who hurt you is not selfishness, it is survival. Maybe one day she would understand, or maybe not, but I could no longer keep waiting for her to change. I had to change myself. The plane landed in Cancun at 3 a.m. When I walked out of the airport and felt the warm Caribbean air on my face, something inside me opened up as if I had been holding my breath for 2 years and could finally inhale. I took a taxi to the hotel I had booked the night before. It was a small hotel, discreet facing the sea, nothing luxurious, but perfect. I arrived at 4 a.m. The receptionist gave me the key to my room with a sleepy smile. I went up the stairs, opened the door, and the first thing I saw was the balcony overlooking the sea. I dropped the suitcase on the floor and went out to the balcony. The sea was dark, but I could hear the waves, I could smell the salt, I could feel the breeze. I stood there with my eyes closed, and for the first time in years, I felt peace. The first days in Cancun were strange. I did not know what to do with so much free time, so much silence, so much freedom. I woke up when I wanted. I had breakfast on the balcony looking at the sea. I walked on the beach barefoot, feeling the sand between my toes. I read books I had bought in a bookstore downtown. I sat in cafes drinking hot chocolate and watching people pass by. No one knew me. No one asked me for anything. No one expected anything from me. It was liberating and terrifying at the same time. One afternoon while walking on the beach, I stopped to look at a family. A father, a mother, 2 small children. They were building a sandcastle together, laughing, playing. I saw the mother. She was young, maybe 30 years old. She was disheveled with sand on her face, her clothes wet, but she was happy, and her children looked at her with adoration. I thought about Sarah when she was a child, how she looked at me like that, how she needed me, how I was her whole world. When had I stopped being her world? When had I become a burden? Tears burned my eyes, but I held them back. I had already cried enough. Now it was time to heal. A week after being in Cancun, the lottery money arrived in my account. $27 million appeared in my bank account on a Tuesday morning. I checked the balance 3 times to make sure it was real. It was. I sat on the hotel bed looking at those numbers on my phone screen, and I did not feel the euphoria I had imagined. I did not feel like screaming or jumping or celebrating. I felt responsibility because that money was not just mine. It was the result of years of work, of sacrifice, of pain that the universe was compensating me for. It was my second chance, my new life, and I was not going to waste it. The first thing I did was look for a lawyer. I hired a woman named Michelle, a lawyer specializing in estates and inheritances. I told her my whole story. I showed her the documents of my house. I explained what Michael had tried to do. I need to protect everything I told her. I do not want anyone to be able to touch my money. I do not want anyone to be able to take my house from me. I need to make sure that if something happens to me, everything is in order. Michelle listened to me with attention and professionalism. We are going to make a very clear will, she told me. We are going to protect all your assets. We are going to make sure no one can try to declare you incompetent or manipulate you. And we are going to leave everything in writing, so there are no doubts. We worked for a whole week. The will ended up like this. The house on Maple Street would remain for Sarah. It was the only inheritance I would leave her. Not because I did not love her, but because she needed to understand that money does not buy the love she lost. A part of the money, $2 million, would remain in a trust for Sarah with one condition. She could only access it if she divorced Michael. If she stayed married to him, the money would go to a foundation for women victims of domestic abuse. $5 million would go to that same foundation. Anyway, the rest of the money was for me to live to enjoy, to do what I could never do. Michelle looked at me when we finished signing everything. "You are a very wise woman, Emily." "I was not always," I replied. "It took me 58 years to learn. The second thing I did was buy a house. Not a mansion, not something ostentatious, something simple, beautiful mine. It was a small house in a quiet area of Cancun, 10 minutes from the sea. 2 bedrooms, a large kitchen with big windows, a garden with palm trees, a porch where I could sit and drink coffee in the mornings. When I entered that house for the first time as the owner, I stood in the middle of the empty living room and cried. I cried for all the years I had lived serving. I cried for the dignity I had lost. I cried for the daughter I loved, but who had not known how to love me back. But I also cried with happiness because this house was mine, completely mine. No one could kick me out. No one could humiliate me here. No one could ask me to clean something I did not want to clean. This house was my temple, my refuge, my freedom. During the first months in Cancun, my phone rang many times. Sarah called me. Michael called me. Even Michael's mother called me once. I did not answer. I had changed my number just as I had planned, but they had found ways to contact me. Messages on social media, emails, text messages from unknown numbers. "Mom, please talk to me. Emily, we need to talk. I was a fool. Forgive me. Mrs. Emily, this is Ashley, Michael's sister. My brother is very sorry. Sarah is devastated. Please give them a chance." I read the messages, all of them, but I did not reply. Not because I was cruel, but because I needed time, I needed space. I needed to heal without the pressure of their expectations, without the guilt of their tears, without the weight of their late regrets. Maybe one day I would talk to Sarah. Maybe one day we could have a real honest conversation without lies. But that day was not today. Today I needed to be selfish. Today I needed to think about me. One afternoon, 3 months after arriving in Cancun, I met a group of women at a downtown cafe. They were women my age, some older, some younger. They gathered every Thursday afternoon to drink coffee, talk, laugh. One of them, a woman named Patricia, 62 years old, invited me to sit with them. "I always see you alone," she told me with a warm smile. "Come sit with us." And I sat down. That afternoon, I heard their stories. Patricia had left her abusive husband after 30 years of marriage. Carol had lost her son in an accident and had to rebuild her life from scratch. Rose had raised 4 children alone after her husband abandoned her. Each one had scars. Each one had survived something terrible. And each one had found a way to move forward. When it was my turn to speak, I told them my story. Everything. From the beginning to the end. They listened without interrupting. And when I finished, Patricia took my hand. "You are very brave, Emily. I do not feel brave," I admitted. "I feel tired." "That is because you are still carrying the pain," said Carol. "But little by little you are going to let it go. And one day you are going to wake up and realize it does not hurt so much anymore." "Really?" I asked. Really said all of them at the same time, and I realized I had found something I did not know I needed. Sisters, women who understood, women who did not judge me, women who had walked similar paths and survived. With the passing of months, I started doing things for myself. I took painting classes. Those classes I had wanted to take years ago and that Michael had prevented. Turned out I was not very good at painting, but it did not matter. It made me happy. I joined a walking group that walked the beach every morning. I met more people. I made more friends. I started volunteering at the Foundation for Women that I had helped create with part of my money. I listened to stories of women who had suffered abuse, abandonment, humiliation. I gave them advice. I gave them hope. I showed them it was possible to get ahead. And by helping them, I helped myself. 6 months after arriving in Cancun, I finally answered a call from Sarah. Not because I felt obligated, but because I was ready. Mom. Her voice sounded broken, small, scared. Hello, Sarah. Mom, thank you for answering. Thank you. I did not know if you would ever talk to me again. I needed time, honey. I know. I understand. Mom, I want to apologize for everything, for not defending you, for allowing Michael to treat you like that, for being so selfish, for not loving you as you deserved. Tears burned my eyes, but my voice remained firm. Thank you for saying it, Sarah. Do you forgive me? I thought about that question for a long moment. Forgiveness is not something given overnight. I told her honestly. Forgiveness is a process, and I am still in that process. But I can tell you that I no longer hold a grudge. I no longer feel rage. I only feel sadness for what we could have been and were not. Sarah cried on the other end of the line. Are you going to come back someday? I do not know, honey. This is my life now. I have a house here. I have friends. I have peace. And that is something I did not have in a long time. I understand. There was a silence. Are you still with Michael? I asked. Longer silence. Yes, she said finally. But things have changed. He is different. More. I do not know. More kind. Sarah, people do not really change. They only change their behavior when it suits them. Michael is being kind because now he knows he does not have me under his control. But his essence is the same. Maybe you are right. Remember what is in the will. I told her gently. There is money waiting for you if you decide to do the right thing for yourself. But only you can decide what is right. I know, Mom. And thank you for that, for everything. I love you, Sarah. I will always love you. But loving does not mean accepting mistreatment. I hope one day you understand that. I understand it now, Mom. Now I do understand. We hung up, and I sat on my porch, watching the sun set over the sea, feeling that a part of my heart was starting to heal. That night, I took out the photograph of Santa Monica and looked at it for the last time with nostalgia. I no longer needed to look for that young woman because I had found her, not outside but inside. That woman had never really left. She had just been asleep waiting for the right moment to wake up. And now she was awake, free, alive. I put the photograph in a new frame and hung it on my living room wall, no longer as a reminder of what I had lost, but as a celebration of what I had recovered. 1 year after leaving that house, I received an unexpected call. It was Patricia, my friend from the coffee group, but she was not calling to chat. Emily, I just saw something on Facebook that I think you should know. My heart raced. What is it? It is about your daughter. Sarah posted something strong. She sent me a screenshot. It was a post from Sarah written at 2 a.m. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that save us. Today I signed my divorce papers. After 4 years of marriage, I chose my peace of mind over comfort. I chose my dignity over fear. My mom taught me that it is never too late to start over. Mom, if you are reading this, you were right about everything. I love you and I am sorry. I read the post 3 times. Sarah had divorced Michael. I closed my eyes and felt something warm expand in my chest. It was not satisfaction for her suffering. It was relief. relief that my daughter had finally found the strength to break free. I called her immediately. Sarah answered on the first ring as if she had been waiting for my call. "Mom, I saw your post, and I am proud of you, honey." I heard a sob on the other end of the line. "Thank you, Mom. I needed to hear that." We agreed to meet 2 weeks later at a neutral cafe halfway between Cancun and where she lived now. When I saw her walk into the cafe, I almost did not recognize her. She looked different, thinner, more tired, but also more real, as if she had finally stopped wearing a mask. We hugged, a long hug full of everything we had not said for a year. We sat down and ordered coffee. "Tell me," I said. Sarah took a deep breath. "After you left that Christmas Eve, everything fell apart. The guests left uncomfortable. Michael family was scandalized, and he was furious. What happened?" "At first, he tried to convince me that you were crazy, that you had exaggerated everything, that he had always treated you well, and that you were ungrateful." "And you believed him?" Sarah shook her head. "No, because I had seen everything. I had been there. And even though I had tried to ignore it after that night, I could not anymore." Your words kept echoing in my head. "Do you love me because I am your mother or because I clean your house?" And I realized that I had also let Michael treat me badly only in more subtle ways. She took a sip of coffee with trembling hands. I started seeing him differently, seeing how he talked to me, how he ignored me when it did not suit him, how all his plans were always about him, never about me, how I had become an accessory to his perfect life. "Why did you take so long to leave, Fear?" She admitted. Fear of being alone, fear of failing, fear of admitting I had been wrong. But then something happened that changed everything. Sarah told me what had happened in the months after my departure. Michael had become obsessed with finding me, with convincing me to come back. Not because he missed me, but because he wanted access to my money. "He asked me every day to call you," said Sarah, "to convince you to forgive him, to give him just $1 million to invest in a business. He said it was the least you could do after everything he had done for you." I laughed bitterly. "Everything he did for me." "You mean humiliating me for 2 years?" "Exactly. But he did not see it that way. He thought that by letting you live in his house, he had done you a huge favor. He thought you owed him something." And what did you think? Sarah lowered her gaze. "At first, I also believed it a little. But little by little, I started seeing things clearly. I started remembering everything you had done for us, everything you had worked for. And I realized Michael was right about something. Someone had done us a huge favor, but it was not him. It was you." Sarah continued her story. 3 months after my departure, Michael's sister Ashley had a family dinner. She invited Sarah and Michael. During dinner, while drinking wine, Ashley and Michael's mother started talking about me. "What luck that she won the lottery," said Ashley. Although honestly, with $27 million, the least she could do is share a little with her only daughter. Michael's mother nodded. "It is very selfish of her to leave and leave you guys like this, after everything you did for her." Sarah looked at me. In that moment, Mom, something inside me exploded. I put the wine glass on the table with so much force everyone looked at me. "What did you tell them?" I told them the truth. I told them you had worked like a slave in our house for 2 years, that Michael had treated you like trash, that I had been a coward for not defending you. I told them you were not selfish, but the most generous person I knew, and that after everything we had done to you, it was a miracle you still spoke to me. I felt a lump in my throat. And what did they say? Michael called me dramatic. His mother said I was being disrespectful. Ashley said I was exaggerating. But I did not shut up anymore. I told them everything. The humiliations, the plans to take your house, the chat where Michael called you a useless old woman. Everything. And then Michael ordered me to shut up. He ordered me Mom as if I were a child, and in that moment I saw my future. I saw what my life would be like with him. Years and years of being ordered, controlled, silenced. Years of becoming what you had been to him, something useful that eventually would cease to be. Sarah wiped her tears. I got up from that table and told him I wanted a divorce. Right there in front of his whole family, and I left. After that dinner, Sarah had moved back to the house on Maple Street. The house I had left her. It was abandoned, Mom, full of dust, neglected. But when I went in and closed the door, I felt something I had not felt in years. I felt like I was home. I am glad, honey. I started fixing it little by little with my own hands. I painted the walls, fixed the leaks, planted flowers in the garden. And everything I did, I thought of you. Of how you had done all this alone without help while raising me. Sarah took my hand on the table. Mom, I did not know. I did not know how hard it had been. I did not know how much you had sacrificed, because you never complained. You always made everything look easy, and I grew up thinking that everything you did was normal, that it was your obligation. I do not blame you for that, Sarah. I taught you wrong. I taught you that sacrifice was love. But I did not teach you that love also requires boundaries. Well, I am learning now, she said with a sad smile. Better late than never. She told me about the divorce process. Michael had fought every step of the way, not because he wanted to save the marriage, but because he did not want to lose the house. He hired an expensive lawyer who tried to argue that the house was marital property. But the title was only in my name because you had left it directly to me. We did not really have shared assets. He paid the mortgage on his house, but never finished paying it. And that house is technically his parents'. And how did it end? It ended with him having nothing except his debts. Turns out Michael had been investing in risky businesses. He had loans I did not know about, credit card debts. His company was not doing as well as he bragged. Sarah paused. In fact, Mom, there is something else you should know. What Michael declared bankruptcy 3 months ago. I stayed silent, processing the information. His business failed. The investments failed. His partners sued him for fraud. He lost everything. His house, his car, his reputation. Now he is living in a small apartment, working a normal job. He hates paying debts that will take years to clear. I did not feel joy hearing that. I did not feel satisfaction. I felt something deeper. I felt the balance of the universe working. Michael had spent years trying to take what was not his, my house, my dignity, my peace. And in the end, he had lost everything of his own, not out of revenge, not because I had done something, but because actions have consequences, because the way you treat people comes back to you in one way or another. How is he? I asked. Sarah shrugged. I have only seen him once since the divorce. In court to sign the final papers, he looked empty, old, tired. He looked at me as if expecting me to pity him, as if expecting me to say, "It is okay, let us forget all this and be together again." And what did you say to him? I did not say anything. I just signed the papers and left because there is nothing left to say. He chose his path, and I chose mine. We stayed in silence for a moment. Do you know what is the most ironic thing? Said Sarah finally. What that? If Michael had treated you well, if he had treated both of us well, you probably would have been generous with him. You probably would have helped him financially. You would have given him advice. You would have opened doors because that is how you were. But he chose cruelty, and cruelty left him alone and broke. She was right. If Michael had treated me with respect, with dignity, with genuine love, I would have been the first to support him because I was a generous woman. I always had been. But my generosity had limits now, and those limits were well set. After coffee, Sarah and I walked along the boardwalk. Mom, there is something else I want to tell you. Tell me, honey, the money you left in the trust for me. Yes, I have not touched it. I looked at her surprised. Why not? You already got divorced. You can access it. I know, but I do not want to take it yet. Why not? Sarah stopped and looked me in the eyes. because I want to prove to you that I am not with you for the money. I want to rebuild our relationship from scratch without money being involved. I want you to know that I love you because you are my mom, not because you have $27 million. Tears ran down my cheeks. Sarah, when I feel we have truly healed, when I feel our relationship is strong again, then maybe I will take it. Or maybe not. Maybe I will leave it for a foundation like you did. I do not know. But for now, I do not need it. I have a job, I have the house, and I am learning to be happy with what I have. I hugged her tight. I am very proud of you, daughter. Very proud. That night, back in my house in Cancun, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and looked at the stars. I thought about Michael, about his shattered pride, his ruined life, his loneliness. I did not feel sorry for him, but I did not feel hate either. I felt what someone feels who has seen justice served naturally. I felt peace because Michael had not been punished by me. He had been punished by his own decisions, by his cruelty, by his greed, by his inability to see people as valuable human beings. He once called me crazy, called me a useless old woman, called me a burden. And years later, he was the one alone in a small apartment, without money, without respect, without peace. While I was in my house facing the sea, surrounded by friends doing work that filled my soul, rebuilding the relationship with my daughter, the life always collects its debts. Not immediately, not obviously, but it always collects. And I had learned that the best revenge is not returning the pain. The best revenge is living well, living, free living, happy. Because when you live well, those who hurt you have to see how you blossomed without them. They have to see how their poison did not kill you. They have to see how you became something beautiful despite them, not because of them. And that is the most poetic justice of all. 3 years have passed since that Christmas Eve. 3 years since I left that house with my suitcase and my recovered dignity. 3 years since I got on that plane without knowing exactly what awaited me, only knowing I had to leave. Today I'm 61 years old. My hair is still gray, but now I wear it short and styled. My wrinkles are still there, but they do not bother me anymore. They are maps of everything I have lived, of everything I have survived, of everything I have learned. I still live in my small house in Cancun. Every morning I get up and drink coffee on the porch, looking at the garden I planted myself. Palm trees, bougainvillea, jasmine. Everything grows here with such ease, as if the earth knew I need to see beautiful things after so many years of darkness. Sarah visits me every 2 months. We have been rebuilding ourselves little by little. It is not the same relationship we had before. It is better. It is more honest. It is more real. She still lives in the house on Maple Street. She transformed it completely. It is no longer the humble little house where I raised her. It is something new, something she built with her own hands. And that fills me with pride. She got a job as a teacher at an elementary school. She does not earn much, but she is happy. She tells me about her students, about the drawings they make for her, about the stories they tell her. "It is funny, Mom," she told me on her last visit. "Now I understand why you always kept my school drawings. Now I understand that love that asks for nothing in return." Last month, she finally accessed the trust money, but she did not use it for herself. She donated it entirely to a school in her neighborhood that was about to close due to lack of funds. "I learned from you, Mom," she told me, "that true wealth is not in accumulating, but in sharing." My group of coffee friends continues to meet every Thursday. Patricia, Carol, Rose, and me. 4 women who have survived storms and who now enjoy the calm. We talk about everything about our children, about our pasts, about our dreams for the future. We laugh a lot, we cry when necessary. We support each other without judging. They have taught me that family is not always blood. Sometimes family is the one you choose, the one who sees you in your worst moments, and stays the one who celebrates your victories without envy. The foundation I helped create has expanded. Now it has 3 branches in different cities. We help women leaving abusive relationships. We give them temporary shelter legal advice, psychological support job training. I go to the Cancun branch twice a week. I listen to stories that break my heart, stories of women who have lived worse things than me. Women who have survived physical violence, sexual abuse, extreme poverty. And I tell them the same thing someone told me. It is not too late. It is never too late to start over. Some believe me, some do not. But I plant seeds, and I trust that one day those seeds will grow. Of Michael, I do not know much. Sarah told me a few months ago that she saw him in a supermarket. He was alone buying cheap things with a lost look. He looked old, Mom much older than someone of 42 should look. I did not ask more, I did not need to know. Michael lives with the consequences of his decisions, just like everyone just like me. The difference is that I chose kindness, and he chose cruelty, and every choice builds the path we walk. Sometimes on quiet nights I take out the photograph of Santa Monica. I no longer need it to remind me who I was. Now I look at it to celebrate who I am. That young woman in the portrait and this 61-year-old woman are the same person. Time does not take away our essence. It only teaches us to see it more clearly. I am still that free woman, that strong woman, that woman who deserves love and respect. Only now I know it, I believe it, I defend it. I have learned so many things in these 3 years. I have learned that true love does not ask you to disappear. True love sees you, values you, respects you. I have learned that saying no does not make you selfish, it makes you honest. I have learned that you cannot save anyone who does not want to be saved, and that it is okay to walk away from whoever hurts you, even if it is family. I have learned that age is not a sentence. At 58, I started over. At 61, I keep building, and I plan to keep building until the last day of my life. I have learned that chosen solitude is better than company that destroys you. And I have learned that the universe has mysterious ways of balancing things, not always in the way we expect, not always in the time we want, but always. Eventually, there is justice. There are moments when I wonder, what if I had stayed? What if I had kept enduring? What if I had never won the lottery? The lottery was a blessing. Yes, but it was not what saved me. What saved me was the decision to leave, the decision to say enough, the decision to believe I deserved something better. The money only smoothed the path, but I would have found a way to leave anyway, because when a woman decides she is no longer going to allow herself to be destroyed, nothing stops her. This morning, I received a message from Sarah. Mom, I love you. Thank you for teaching me that it is never too late to change. Thank you for showing me that self-love is not selfishness, it is survival. Thank you for not giving up on me even though I did not defend you when I should have. You are the strongest woman I know. I read that message 3 times and cried. I cried because finally, after so many years, my daughter saw me, really saw me. Not like the mom who cleaned and cooked, not like the mom who sacrificed in silence, but like the complete woman I had always been, but no one had taken the time to know. If you are listening to this story and you feel identified, if you feel you are living for everyone except yourself, if you feel you have lost your voice, your value, your essence, I want to tell you something. It is not too late. It does not matter how old you are. It does not matter how long you have been trapped. It does not matter how impossible it seems to get out. There is a woman inside you who is waiting to be free. She is waiting for you to give her permission to exist. She is waiting for you to defend her. You do not need to win the lottery. You do not need an external miracle. You only need to make the decision that you also matter, that your happiness also counts, that your life also has value. And when you make that decision, everything starts to change. Maybe not immediately, maybe it will not be easy, but it will change. Because a woman who knows her worth is unstoppable. Tomorrow I turn 62. I am going to throw a small party here at my house. Sarah is coming. My friends are coming. We are going to eat, laugh, celebrate. We are going to celebrate life. My life. This life that I almost lost trying to be what everyone needed me to be. This life that is finally mine. And while I write these last words, while the sun sets over the sea of Cancun, while I listen to the sound of the waves and feel the warm breeze on my face, I feel something I had not felt in decades. I feel gratitude. Gratitude for the pain that taught me. Gratitude for the betrayal that liberated me. Gratitude for the loss that showed me what really mattered. And gratitude for the woman I became when I finally dared to defend myself. If my story helps a single woman open her eyes, it will have been worth it. If it helps a single daughter see her mother as a complete human being, it will have been worth it. If it helps a single person understand that walking away from whoever hurts you is not cruelty but self-love, it will have been worth it, because stories have power. They have the power to heal, to awaken, to transform. And this is my story, the story of Emily Carter, a woman who lost her voice for 58 years and found it again when she needed it most. A woman who learned that it is never too late to start over. A woman who is alive, free, and finally at peace. Thank you for listening until the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and hit the bell to hear more stories of women who transformed their pain into wisdom. Every day, a woman a life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change a whole day. God bless you, and until next time.